Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the 49ers Rush Podcast. And with me, as we've kind of started doing on these Thursdays, is Brian McFadden of Legit Football to kind of broaden. We get this one episode a week to peek outside of the 49ers realm, but we're still going to bring it back to the 49ers. Brian, how are you, sir? Thank you for joining us again.
John, I'm awesome. I'm happy to be like your liaison to the greater NFL. I know that you Bay faithful and someone who lives in the Bay Area myself, you get tied up in the Niners. I don't blame you for that, but it's nice to know what's going on outside of not just the NFC West, but how about the rest of the divisions in the NFL? And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
I love it, man. So here's what we got. The 49ers, the entire NFC West, they are battling hard all year with probably one of the other toughest divisions in football, if not the toughest. I think it's the best division in football this year. I think the NFC West has had that trophy, but I don't think they do anymore with Seattle plummeting, with Arizona, I think, taking some steps back. Who knows with Trey Lance? We all think he's going to be great, but still, there are question marks there. Then you look at the AFC West. Holy freaking cow.
Wow.
They have added everybody. The only person that really left out of the AFC West was Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
But outside of that, man, they have blown up. So here's what we want to do. And also, I do want to say, after we talk some AFC stuff, we're going to jump into a little bit of the Deshaun Watson thing, which actually, let's get that out of the way now, Brian, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure, of course.
The whole Deshaun Watson, whatever, before any of the allegations came out, this was a guy that was very active in the community and, doing so much for Habitat for Humanity. It seemed to be kind of one of the golden children of the NFL. And I had him as my second ranked quarterback that year before all this stuff came out and he decided I'm not going to play for the Texans, whatever else. I had Patrick Mahomes, then him, 1-2, as far as promising bright futures. But man, it's gotten really, really bad. And so the trade took place, which, I want to talk about that a little bit, but now more allegations are coming out.
Up to 24.
Yeah, up to 24 now, which is a lot. And people want to go back and talk about Ben Roethlisberger, who had several sexual assault allegations. He had 3. And, this is 24. This is a lot. And people want to say things like, oh, well, he was not guilty, whatever else. No. They chose not to move forward. Doesn't mean he's innocent or anything. They just criminally, but I don't think the criminal charges are over. I really, really don't.
And one thing that it's important to know on the criminal side is these kinds of cases are extremely difficult to prosecute criminally. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those crimes that there's just not a lot of evidence for. So simply because a grand jury decides not to move forward is by no means clearance of him being innocent. And I think when you get 24 accusers on the civil side, it's kind of hard to say, oh, yeah, they're probably all lying. So
right. And so, here's where I want to direct this conversation.
Sure.
Is one, now we have information that the Texans not only helped him do these things, they also helped him cover it up with putting NDAs in his locker, giving him a space to do these terrible things. Mm-hmm. And now even the New York Times article, they put out screenshots of a lot of these text messages. Mm-hmm. And man, you can just see this dude is a predatory monster, using things like, oh, I want to support black business. Oh, I want to support your and it's just predatory. So 2 things. The NFL does not care in the least about sexual assault. They don't care about women. If they did care, Daniel Snyder and Jerry Jones would not be owners of teams. Yeah. It's just not a priority for them. What they do care about is image and how bad they make the NFL look. The NFL is looking pretty bad right now, Brian.
Mm-hmm. And Cleveland Browns organization is also looking pretty bad. The Texans are looking pretty bad. Yeah.
And I think those 2 teams for sure, and they deserve everything that's coming their way. And I think it's going to be bad. But also the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons. Arthur Blank has been one of my favorite owners in the NFL forever. The dude seems like he gets it. But, man, he spent so much capital in the community on this kid and lost. And, one of my favorite things of this whole entire thing was Matt Ryan was willing to renegotiate and give money back to the organization on a team-friendly deal until they dipped their toes in the Deshaun Watson thing. And then he said, nope, not rescheduling, trade me or deal with the consequences. And so that's why they had to get rid of him for a third-round pick. But, man, okay, so let's go to this because, not that it's important for the 49ers, but I think it is important for the 49ers. Do you think Deshaun Watson plays one snap this year?
That's a really tough question based on NFL precedents. Do I think he should play a snap this year? No, but it's so hard to imagine the NFL without an actual criminal trial or case going forward for them to suspend him for an entire season. Do I think 8 games is probably very, very realistic? I mean, if we're actually thinking of Vegas odds, right, and what we're putting money on, 8 games seems like the most likely. Is it out of the question because of how bad this is now getting? And now, you know what? Here might be the kicker, John, is the fact that NFL teams are now on the docket. The Texans are actually going to be a named defendant in this, and that makes things a little bit more squishy. So you think of Roger Goodell, and they should be.
They should be.
But if you think Roger Goodell's approach, just a business approach, whether you agree with it or not, and for the record, I don't agree with a lot of the punishment. It doesn't make sense. A lot of the variance, you bet who is it? Calvin Ridley, bet on
$1,500,
right? And he's forget him. He's done for the year. This guy has 24 allegations of sexual predatory activity, and it's like, okay, well, we haven't decided yet. Point being, it's one thing if it's just a player, but when a player gets one of your 32 franchises involved and they're on the suit, that could be the thing that leads to an entire year investigation. So my final answer is I'm still leaning towards more like the 8 to 10 game range, but I would not be surprised with the fact that the Texans are now on the actual suit if it ends up being a year just to protect its own identity for the NFL.
What's up, Perk? Great fan of this guy. He says, no way in hell he plays football this season. And that's the thing. And I love this question from Coach Cruz. He says, how does it work out if there are clauses in the trade in Houston, all those things? So you can't undo draft picks. So I think the draft capital is there. However, if you can prove whether the Texans – misled them or whatever else, I don't think that the trade draft capital changes because Cleveland's on the hook because they're idiots. We did our due diligence, and their due diligence meant not talking to one person, not talking to the attorney, not talking to anybody. Like, they talked to nobody. So there was no due diligence. They just talked to the agent and Deshaun Watson. So, because they put that out there and said, hey, we did our work, I think, you just play that on court in a loop, and I don't think that the Texans will get anything, will give anything back to the Browns. But I do think that the Deshaun Watson contract could be somewhat revoked.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Would happen.
If there is any type of change or repercussion that could come, it would be in the contract side between Watson and the Browns, not in the compensation that was paid from the Browns to the Texans. Those draft picks are already used. That's signed, sealed, delivered. However, there is some language, and I did see Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk mentioning this. There is some language that, if it was not fair dealings, the contract negotiation between Watson and this 24th allegation in particular, because it seems Watson's camp didn't even know about this 24th one. Yeah. So if that's the kind of thing, and it's iffy, and we're not saying that's the case, but it could be a thread that if pulled enough, maybe if this gets, and let's say Watson gets, found, the jury finds in favor of these women and the NFL suspends him for the year, could Cleveland have a case to say, hey, you did not properly represent your situation here?
That's what happened.
We want to get out of it. That'd be something I would like to monitor and see where that goes.
And, I love this, and I dance between this line all the time because I'm a diehard fan. I'm a content creator. I do the show. I do all those things. I'm a diehard fan of the 49ers. My family are diehard fans. For Christmas, I get my boys jerseys. I get them everything. I want them to be fans. I want to share in this experience. It means the world to me that we can support the 49ers brand and not worry about all this other stuff. Big Papa has this comment, makes me proud to be a 49ers fan, and no players we get to have great character. Remember back when everybody was like, man, trade for Deshaun Watson, trade for Deshaun Watson. Then all this stuff came out and it was like, no way in hell. No. And it stinks that there are, Carolina, Atlanta. There's several other teams I'm sure that were involved in it
Miami,
as well.
Miami Dolphins. I was on the record. I had a podcast at the time, an NFL podcast. I was very much against it. I did not want him on my team. I did not want to sully, and don't get me wrong, the Dolphins have sullied it in other ways with the whole Brian Flores thing. But yeah, it's nice to be a fan of an organization like the 49ers that, at least at this moment, doesn't have any of that stuff to deal with and just at least seems to have more integrity than these other organizations.
And I'm not saying you need all choir boys. That's not what I'm saying.
They're still human beings, right? But there's a difference between people who are humans and make mistakes here and there and somebody who, like you said, is shown predatory activity.
Look at the Cowboys. I think it's 4 years in a row they have drafted at least 2 players with sexual assault charges on their record already.
Jerry doesn't care.
Yeah. So anyway, now, having said all those things, my good man Phil here, I love Phil. He's the best. If Watson's out, who's their quarterback? Because Baker, they dismissed Baker. Like they told him, don't come in. Baker's not going to be the quarterback there. His personality, they knew who Baker was beforehand. And so that's on them. I mean, he's going to throw a huge hissy fit everywhere he goes. He's basically a quarterback that's a Karen. That's just who he is. So, Brian, let's set up a hypothetical. And again, understand this. We talk about the 49ers. That's the show. I care way more about what's happened to the victims and all those things. Mm-hmm. That's way more important.
Agreed.
But us as a show, if Deshaun Watson's out for the year, let's just say play that out. Baker Mayfield's not taking a snap there. I've been saying I thought that this was the best fit for Jimmy Garoppolo from the start.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would maybe take a 1-year deal for Jimmy or?
Well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit on the Power Ranking show last week because I was under the assumption, even before this latest set of allegations, that Watson is at least out for half the year, right? So I've got, and Jacoby Brissett is not your full-time starter, so it makes sense to go after someone like Jimmy G. If there's any other quarterback, and I've seen a little bit of this out there, that maybe there could be some sort of swap between Sam Darnold and Mayfield, where Darnold goes to Cleveland and Mayfield goes back to Carolina, and they're actually making about the same amount of money and guaranteed anyway. So it's almost like an even swap. Like Darnold didn't work in Carolina. They drafted Matt Corral, and hey, clearly Baker, I'm telling you right now, he's not playing a snap. He is not playing another snap. I don't care if they rework his contract and all that. He is a very proud guy, and they screwed him over royally. There's a reason he's has already been out of mini camps that are coming up. So I can't think of any other names other than Jimmy and possibly that Sam Darnold swap. To me, Jimmy makes the most sense. You don't have to do some weird quarterback swap. Jimmy's a much better quarterback than Darnold. Like, that's clear. Yeah. So if and the Browns, other than their quarterback mess, which is huge and could completely derail their season, they have a very good roster. They have, as in a stacked AFC, they would probably still be top 4 as far as roster talent. You put Deshaun in there, they might be top 2. So you have a team that can compete. Jimmy Garoppolo has literally taken a team to the Super Bowl. Why wouldn't you give him a 1-year contract until you can figure out how the season goes, until you can figure out what happens with Deshaun, and get a guy in there who, hey, he's played in a play-action style offense before. Kevin Stefanski is very big on play-action. You've got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You've got the best running back tandem in the NFL. I think Jimmy G, not just from a logistical standpoint, but that could actually be a good fit for his playing style as a quarterback. If I'm Andrew Berry and the GM of the Browns, I'm making that deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Ice Cold asked this. He says, Browns have no capital to trade with, though. I think where the 49ers are now, you don't need a lot. I don't know, take a 5th-round pick and Dearness Johnson or something, their 3rd running. I don't know. I'm just off the top of my head. I want that salary cap. I want Jimmy to go to a place where he can play. He deserves it. I think that's best for everybody involved. Yeah. Now, what I don't like doing is throwing the Browns a rope, and I want them to burn for what they've done.
That's a whole different thing. From a personal standpoint, I'm with you there. I'm giving this guy of all guys the highest guaranteed contract. His entire contract is guaranteed.
$130 million.
And then adjusting his salary to only $1 million a year. So if he does get suspended without pay, it doesn't hurt him that much. Like, that's effed up. I don't know if this is not safe for work podcast. I want to say something worse, but that's effed up. Yeah.
Now, and I'll say this, I've heard through the grapevine, a lot of owners and GMs are pissed at the Browns for doing what they did, because that changes the whole slate of future contracts going forward. Look at Cooper Kupp. He got $75 million guaranteed. This dude got $130. This clown got $130 million guaranteed. So I don't think there's going to be an NFL team looking to bail out the Browns to unload Baker. I don't think there's going to be a team out there willing to help, if this Deshaun Watson stuff hits the fan, which I fully expect it will. I don't know, man. It's kind of, you made your bed, you got to lay in it now. And I hope they get everything coming their way. Anyway. Now, wonderful said. I appreciate that conversation, Brian.
Sure.
Now let's transition. 49ers play every single team in the division of the AFC West. Every team in the NFC West. They're playing each other. So what team do you want to start with? Let's talk about the teams a little bit, how the 49ers stack up their roster, if they got better. And I know you want to jump into their schedules a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I like to start from the top down. So let's start with the division winner, which is the Chiefs. Unless you want to start from the bottom and go up. No, we're good.
Let's do it.
Let's jump into KC. You mentioned that, the only real big loss from a personnel standpoint in this entire division was Tyreek Hill. That's a huge loss. We can't understate that. But they have all the other major players. Andy Reid is still there. You've still got Patrick Mahomes, who is, from a talent standpoint, I still believe number one in the NFL as far as quarterbacks go at this age and this stage in his career. You still got Travis Kelce. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but he proved, especially during the playoffs, he's still that guy. You actually have, after their improvements last year, after the debacle against the Bucs in the Super Bowl, you actually have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL.
Oh, they revamped everything.
Yeah. And it worked, and it really worked. They actually had, I think it was the number 2 or number 3 run blocking offensive line in the NFL last year, which makes the whole CEH question another interesting one. But that's a whole other point. They brought in Ronald Jones. This is a team that's going to put up points, and at the end, today's NFL, that matters more than anything. So they do have the number 1 toughest schedule. So I'm using the same.
Looking at this thing right now, that's scary, bro.
It's brutal.
That's scary.
So I was taking a look at all of these schedules, when I knew we were doing the AFC West today, and they're all brutal. Like, the NFC West is the same when the top 2 divisions play each other, it's going to end up that way. But especially when you're the Chiefs and you're a division winner, and the same thing, we talked about the Rams, who were number 2 when we did the NFC West breakdown a couple weeks ago. You're not only getting the teams you play in the other divisions that you're matched up, you're getting all the other number 1 teams, all the other division winners from last year, and it just makes the schedule especially brutal. So it's important to look at this. John and I were talking briefly before we started recording, and we want to know the quality of the team and the roster. But you can have the best roster out there. If you've got a gauntlet of a schedule, that can knock you down a few wins, and that can be the difference between getting a bye, which can be the difference between having your players stay healthy long enough to make a run at a Super Bowl. Schedule is essential when evaluating Super Bowl opportunities and odds. So let's take a look at a few things. First of all,
this stretch, listen to this. You've got Bucks, Raiders, Bills, 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
And even before then, the Colts are no joke. And the Chargers, good gosh.
Cardinals, we can say they've gone down, but they were still a playoff team a year ago. Mm-hmm. The Titans were the number 1 team in the AFC last year. That's just the first half of the schedule. There's not a single cupcake in there. Right? There's no gimme.
I think I speak for a lot of people listening to this show right now. I hate the damn Chiefs, man. I hate them. And I want bad things to happen.
See, here's my, and I've got plenty of teams that I haven't liked over the years. As a Dolphins fan, I've hated Bill Belichick for two decades plus. But I like Patrick Mahomes and I like Andy Reid. So it's like, I can't hate those guys. They're like Tom Brady, when he was Patriot, was easy to hate. Mahomes, he's too goofy to hate. But yeah, let's dive into the schedule a little bit more. You mentioned that stretch. That's not even my toughest stretch. So I was really looking at these schedules, trying to pick out the toughest 3-game stretches. And if you look at week 11 to 14, so this is playoff seeding time. At Chargers versus the Super Bowl champion Rams, at the Super Bowl losing Bengals, and then you have to, after all of that, go to a division game and go to face Russell Wilson at Mile High Stadium in week 17. This is just, that is murderer's row. And it helps that they're one of the most talented teams in the NFL, but they're not going to win all these. There's just the football's going to bounce certain ways. They're going to lose some of these. And I don't know if you want to go ahead and segue into my record prediction.
Yeah, let's go. Tell us what you got, man.
So, I mean, it's still the Chiefs. They lost Tyreek Hill, but they've still got one of the best offenses in the NFL. So I still have them finishing 12-5.
Oh, okay.
But I do not have them winning the division.
12-5 is pretty impressive.
It is, and it was one of those things that it could end up biting me. I have a lot of faith in the Chiefs. When you have somebody of Patrick Mahomes' talent, the quarterback position is everything. I hope for you 49ers fans that Trey Lance has that talent, because you will see the difference that Jimmy G, who is a very good quarterback, versus an elite quarterback, how high that can raise a roster that's already good. So I'm a believer in Mahomes, and I'm a believer in Kelsey, and I'm a believer in Andy Reid. Those three alone will get you 10 wins. Just right. With the quality of the coaching and the quality of talent that they have.
They're that good. Even last year when they started off, like, I think it was 2-2 or 2-3.
It was 2-3. Like, yeah, they had a losing record. And a lot of those were like the weird interceptions where the ball would bounce, and then they kind of got in their own head. But then they made a run and almost made it to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So, I mean, I try to go game by game. They do have a little bit of a couple in the second half of the season. They got the Texans, they got the Jags, they got the Seahawks. I mean, those are three just easy wins right there. I do think they'll beat the Cardinals in week 1, even though that is a road game. They'll split some of their division games, even against the tougher teams like the Broncos and the Chargers. They could easily beat Tom Brady has to get worse at some point, so they could beat the Bucs. Bills, I mean, those are tough. At 49ers is probably a loss, so that's probably one of their 5. So I really just broke it down, and I think worst case, your floor for this Chiefs team is still a 10-win season. But, spoiler alert, like I said, I don't have them at number 1 in the AFC West.
Okay, so if that's the case, I don't know your answer here. Who do you have at number 1?
So let's get to that. I want to go in order.
Oh, okay, all right.
Of how they finished last year. So the second place team from the AFC West in 2021 was the Raiders, because they ended up beating the Chargers in overtime. The Chargers could, if they tied, then they both would have been in, but the Raiders made it in, and they have as a result, they got the second place schedule, and they're playing the NFC West, so they actually have the third toughest. We mentioned the Rams 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs just now. The Raiders, who are much improved from a talent standpoint, especially in the offensive side of the ball, have the third toughest schedule in the entire NFL if you go by Vegas predicted wins, which is how I like to do this. So let's dive into the schedule itself. Same thing.
I think every one of these guys, I mean, just the fact, okay, if you're in the AFC West, you've got 6 difficult games because there's no cupcakes there. You got to play the Chiefs twice, you got to play the Chargers twice, you got to play Denver twice, or the Raiders twice, and then you've got another 4 tough games. So that's 10 tough games. Period.
Maybe Seattle. I know you guys like when we crap on Seattle. We'll give Seattle as not a tough game, but that still leaves you with 9. That's 6 division AFC West games, and Rams, 49ers, and Cardinals in the NFC West. Wow, just that stretch alone. But as a second place team, you've got to play the Colts. You've got to play the Patriots, which
and that early bye, man. Again, I hate making everything 49ers centric. But you look at that early bye week 6, they play the 49ers week 17. That's 11 straight weeks. I love that, man. Just from the 49ers standpoint alone. Sorry, I know I got to do that. I'm bad. I'll stop.
No, you're a 49ers podcaster. I would expect nothing less, John. It's my job to talk about the whole NFL. It's your job to bring it back to San Francisco. I don't blame you. But yeah, let's dive into that a little bit, because that is actually my 3 toughest non-division matchups. Obviously, I've got week 14 at the Rams. The Rams are going to be on everybody's toughest matchup. They won the Super Bowl. Week 15 at the Patriots, because you've got an ex-Patriots assistant coach going back to Bill Belichick. Josh McDaniels did not have a successful first run with Denver, and this will be his first time as head coach since then, running a Raiders team going up against Bill Belichick and that defense, even though I'm not high on the Patriots. Correct. And then week 17 against the Niners, you've got late season playoff implications for both teams. This is a team that is going to face the Chiefs the week after that. So you've got the team that's going to be beating you up in your division. And that 49ers, I just think that 49ers team is going to be a grind at that point in the season. And that's definitely one of the games that I picked as a loss for the Raiders. And there's quite a few. And once again, this is not an indictment on their roster. I think this is a team that made the playoffs and is a much better roster on both sides of the ball. I like Josh McDaniels as a coach, better than Gruden and then Bisaccia. But it's still, that's such a tough schedule. They still have some holes on the defensive side of the ball. I like what they've done on pass rush with Chandler Jones and Max Crosby coming back. Obviously, Devontae Adams is a huge get. This team is going to score some points.
That O-line, though, that's the biggest weakness of any team in the AFC West, like positional group-wise. That offensive line for the Raiders is just bad. It's not even good. Like, it's bottom 5 NFL bad. But it has been bad, and they've been able to put up points. So, like,
and their secondary, I'm not crazy about their secondary. They did trade for Rock Yassin. Trayvon Mullen showed a little bit of promise. And Yassin's like a decent starter, but he's not a game changer. Jonathan Abrams was supposed to be their big safety, and he drafted him in the first round a couple years ago. He hasn't really turned into what they wanted. They've got the pass rush. They are going to really, really need Chandler Jones and Max Crosby to light it up in order for this defense to be successful. And you're going up against a gauntlet of offenses in the AFC West.
Right. I'm curious, people in the chat watching the show, this has no impact whatsoever on the 49ers. That Week 15 game, when the Raiders play the Patriots, who do you want to win? I want you to type in Raiders or Patriots. I'm just curious because I hate both of these teams. I hate the Raiders a lot.
Not predictions, guys. Who do you want to win?
Who will you want to win?
Yes. Who you'll be cheering for in that game?
Throw that up in there. I'm curious to see how people are kind of, thinking this. And, real quick, David asks this, John, is Vic Fangio still hanging around the team? I hope so. He was there early on. But, for rookie minicamp, he was there. I haven't heard anything since then. It would be a nice situation if Vic Fangio does come, if DeMeco Ryans gets that head coaching job, which I expect him to get that. So, yeah, I love this. I'm seeing Shot J says the Raiders. We've got Patriots. I just felt like can't stand Mac Jones. I'm with you there, Anthony. Like, this is one of those things that I'm stuck.
Oh, this is like 50-50. Like, I think, I was curious, because the Raiders obviously were from the Bay Area. Now they're over in Vegas. So I don't know if that means you guys like them a little bit more, or if it's like, no, they're always, if you're not a Niner, you're a Raider and we hate you. But yeah, it looks like the crowd, like you and I the same. I can't cheer for the Patriots under any circumstance. Just so let me throw that out there. And I like this scrappy Raiders team. So I'm going to be cheering for the Raiders for fun. And I have some fantasy players like Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller on my dynasty team. So that's my reason for playing for the Raiders.
There it is. If Nick Mullins is playing, I'll be rooting for Nick Mullins always, man.
Yeah,
always.
There you go.
All right. I love it. So anything else on the Raiders, Brian?
No, I mean, interesting trap game week 16 at the Steelers. We mentioned when you have these gauntlet of a schedule and you have a team
Christmas Eve
with Pittsburgh that correct. December 24th. That's a evening game. I don't think their Steelers are going to be particularly good, but it's still Mike Tomlin. They've still got enough talent to be a bit of a surprise. The Raiders are going to be coming off that Patriots game and then going to play or staying at home to play the 49ers, followed by the Chiefs. So I just feel like that's a game that could just really knock them out. So let's say an emotionally draining game against the Patriots, followed by a trap game against the Steelers, followed by an extremely tough late season game against the Niners, and you finish with the Chiefs. So I'm going to segue that into my record prediction. And I tried to find more wins for this team. And I do think they're gonna compete for a playoff team just because of the talent that they have, but I have them finishing at 9-8, and I do have them finishing on the other side of that 7th playoff seed.
How great would it be to usher in the new year? Because January 1st, New Year's Day, we're going to be in Vegas with 49ers Rush Road Trip. Get your tickets, 49ersRushRoadTrip.com. Also want to throw this out there. In contact with several former players trying to get them out to some of these events that we're doing this year. So just throwing that out there. But, man, how sweet would it be for the 49ers to deal the final blow and knock the freaking Raiders out of playoff contention? Whew.
I think that could be the week. That could be the week where it happens. They're coming off, let's say, 2 losses in a row to the Patriots and the Steelers. Maybe were riding high at 9-6 or 9-4 or something like that. And I think the 49ers just puts the nail in the coffin, knocks them out of playoff elimination, and then it makes the victory sweeter for you guys in San Francisco.
It's going to help me sleep. I'm going to go to sleep tonight, 6 months before, with a smile, just thinking about that situation.
My job, I think, on this podcast is just to make you sleep better. I trash the Seahawks in the division and in the power rankings. And I trashing the Raiders here. So that's why you keep bringing me on, John.
I did get some emails about your 49ers prediction, though. I will throw that.
Yes.
I will. Yeah. But I went to bat for you. I'm not a pander. Don't pander.
Correct. I'm here to give the non-biased take, honest take. I still have the Niners in the playoffs, and that's not because I'm talking to all of you wonderful 49ers fans.
All right. I love it. All right. Who do you got next? I know we're going off last year's standing.
Going off last year, so correct. That is the Los Angeles Chargers, who have the 13th toughest schedule in the NFL. And that 13th toughest, that's actually a benefit to the Chargers, who I feel, if any of you guys would listen to our power ranking show last week, they're my ride or die team. They're the team that I'm really high on. I've seen some of you guys mention in the chats that you're also high on the Chargers. So getting the 13th toughest schedule, getting to face the third place teams is going to be a big advantage there. So let's dive into the schedule a little bit. You have that Raiders team to start off the season at KC, but then you have the Jaguars.
I got the wrong schedule up here. Oops, let me take that down. That's my bad. I messed up. Let me fix that. You go ahead, sir. My bad.
Yeah, no worries. So you start off against the Raiders. You have at KC on a Thursday night game, but then you have a home game against the Jaguars, the Texans on the road, at Cleveland in a game that I think we can all agree, even if he's not suspended for the year, Deshaun Watson will not be playing that game. So right off the bat, even if, let's say you split Raiders and Chiefs, you win those three, now you're looking at 4-1 to start the season. That just gives you all the momentum, the way the schedule lays out. You got a tough game against the Broncos on Monday Night Football. It is at home. And then you play the Seahawks. And then the Falcons. Like, this early schedule just really sets up well for, there you go. Really sets up well for a Chargers team that's already one of the most talented in the NFL. Not only did they improve on the offensive side of the ball, they brought back Mike Williams. They drafted a nice running back in Isaiah Spiller. I know, John, I think you mentioned like you're an A&M guy there.
Yeah. I hate A&M. I'm a Longhorn, but I love Isaiah Spiller.
You're a two guy.
That was one of my favorite picks in the draft. I hate A&M.
And Spiller, especially, he's not coming in to be the guy. You still have Austin Eckler there. Obviously, you got Keenan Allen. You have a very good offensive line with some of the additions they've made, including Zion Johnson out of this draft.
Hey, Brian, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
This is a question I keep getting, and I want to pump everything that you're doing because I think you're just a good dude.
Thanks.
Here we go. David asks this. Does Brian have a channel I can follow?
So I do not have a channel at the moment. I used to run my own NFL podcast. All my energy now goes into Legit Football. So if you want to follow, guys, go over to Twitter @_Legit Football. Sign up for our free NFL newsletter.
Free.
For 100% free. We don't charge for any of this stuff. We want you guys to have the info. We actually have a lot of 49ers stuff in there just because there's been a lot of stuff in the news. So you just go over there. You can actually, if you look for our podcast, we have a daily podcast. I don't run the podcast. I will be running a different podcast. We're working on kind of the logistics of a really cool podcast idea. And then we have an app. If you just go to the App Store or the Google Play and just look up Legit Football, we have an app that gives you all the NFL news to the day. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter every day. That's probably the best way to reach me. Subscribe to our newsletter and join the Legit Football family.
You know, it's turned into, Brian came out and helped us with our draft production, which was incredible, by the way. This has turned into one of my very first things I do in my morning routine. Whenever I wake up, I work out, the first thing I do. And then once I sit down and go through my emails and stuff, just check on the entire NFL. Love what they do. It's just incredible. It's free. It's easy. It's just a quick, nice snapshot of all things NFL.
5-minute read or less. You just get on with your day. That's what we like to do. John, I appreciate that you read it. That makes me happy. So yeah, let's dive. And thanks, you guys. Thanks for asking. I really appreciate that, David. And like I said, you can email me at brian@legitfootball.com if you ever want to reach out to me. If you don't want, I think, David, you said you're not a Twitter guy. Just shoot me an email. I'll talk football anytime. And I'm going to be on John's show, as long as he'll have me every Thursday. So you can keep finding me here.
I love this. I'm getting so many positive things just because a lot of the people that watch my channel and, they're Niners people. That's what we are. So this is good to get a little bit more frame of reference just once a week. We're still going to be a Niners channel completely. But question, what's my email? 49ersrushpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to us, 49ersrushpodcast@gmail.com if you want to reach us. All right, Brian. So let's jump back into the Chargers.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the second half of the schedule. Obviously, it does get a little bit tougher here. You've got at San Francisco, Sunday night game in Week 10, followed by the Chiefs, at Cardinals, at Raiders, home against the Dolphins and Titans, at Colts, LA, and then the Rams, and then the Broncos. So the second half does get tougher, but because they have such a good start, because they have that third place schedule, And because they have a stacked team, let's go over some of the additions. I mean, they got Khalil Mack. You got Sebastian Joseph Day, who's going to shore up the middle, and that was one of their biggest weaknesses last year. You brought on J.C. Jackson, one of the top defensive backs, to add on to a team that already had Derwin James, that drafted Asante Samuel Jr. last year. It's just they're stacked across the board.
J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr. is such a cool tandem, man.
And Derwin James, I mean, this is a guy who, when he's healthy, is one of the biggest playmakers on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL. From a pass rushing standpoint, from a turnover standpoint, Derwin James is the real deal. He has been since he came into the league. And then adding Khalil Mack on the other side from Joey Bosa. This team is stacked across the board. They don't really have any obvious weaknesses. Small upgrade at tight end, bringing on Gerald Everett over, 36-year-old Jared Cook.
Correct.
Across the board. And you know what? None of that matters. They've got Justin Herbert. You've got an MVP caliber quarterback. There's not a lot of weaknesses. I believe in Brandon Staley. And their schedule sets up nicely.
Well.
That is why I have the Los Angeles Chargers winning the AFC West. And possibly competing for the number 1 seed in the AFC this year.
It would make me happy. I like the Chargers, man. I'm not going to lie. And I hate, if I'm looking at this 49ers schedule, this is the first one that we've gone through today where I was like, oh, I hate this. Because they've got the Seahawks, they suck. A bye week, the Falcons suck more than anybody, then us. Mm-hmm. So I hate the way that is. And I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. The only good thing I could say is at least it's a home game for the 49ers. But
this is not an East Coast team traveling. They're already in LA. They don't have to go far.
There's a lot I don't like about this.
It does not set up well for the Niners. I think when I went through the schedule, so I have them finishing 13-4. I did predict the Niners to win that game because it is at Levi Stadium and it's a Sunday night game. I just feel like they'll be pumped up for that.
It reminds me of the 49ers Bengals game last year where you get these powerhouse teams that are kind of young, up and coming that play everybody close. And remember the 49ers played at the Bengals and went into overtime and they barely won. That's what this is going to be, one of those games. So this is one of those kind of toss up games that's just going to be a heavyweight freaking knockout, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna be big momentum for whoever wins that. That's a key game for me this year, even though it's not a divisional game for the 49ers or conference game. But man, that is a key game to realize we're in the middle of the season.
Stick. Yeah,
who's for real, who's not.
Correct. Yeah, it's a good measuring stick. It'll be as 49ers fans, you'll be able to determine. Because I think this Charger team has a Super Bowl caliber roster. So if you can compete with them, beat them, or at least play them tough, you have a Super Bowl caliber roster too. So keep that game in mind. Week 10, Sunday night. I can't wait. I'm already excited for that particular game. I mentioned 13-4, division winner, high on this Chargers team. And I want to quickly mention Coach Cruz said he could see all 4 AFC West teams in the playoffs. I could too. It was tough not to include all of them. The Raiders, I just think their schedule sets up in a way, and their defensive problems and their offensive line, as John mentioned, they're the team that I have on the outside looking in, but I could easily see all 4 getting in. So let's go ahead and jump into the last team, and that is a team that I was saying on my podcast last year is a quarterback away from being one of the top teams in the AFC. And John, what did they do?
Yeah.
They added a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Oh, he's a Seahawk, or was, so maybe you feel differently.
It's unreal. I thought, again, another team with an incredible roster. Just incredible. Several players that I'm just big fans of, and I actually like their coaching staff too. Mm-hmm. And then they go on top of that, and I'm not a Russell Wilson guy. I can't stand him, Captain Cringe, but he's a damn good football player.
Right. Yeah, that's how I felt about Brady when he was with the Patriots. What is the Anchorman line? I can't stand you, but man, do I respect you. That's Russell Wilson from a personal, I don't really care personally, but he's a weird dude, but he's a very good quarterback. And when you get him with these skill positions, right? So you got Cortland Sutton, who has had problems staying healthy, but I think, he's a legit top 15 wide receiver because of his ability. He does it all. He can do contested catch. He's a great route runner, got great hands. You've got Jerry Jeudy, who, has the talent to be one of the best route runners in the NFL. You've got Albert O, which I know they lost Noah Fant to Seattle, but Albert O is a very talented, not even going to attempt his last name, very talented tight end. You've got one of the best running back tandems, bringing back Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, absolutely stud as a rookie. And then you have a middle-of-the-road offensive line, but certainly better than what the Raiders are putting out there.
Right.
And it's just, you got Randy Gregory added to that pass rush with Bradley Chubb. Patrick Surtain is already one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL. He's only been in the league 1 year. Justin Simmons, one of the top safeties in the NFL. You've got talent, just like we were talking about with the Chargers, at every level. My biggest question mark here is the coaching staff, simply because they're new. Josh McDaniels has at least run an NFL team before, and he's been under Belichick for what seems like forever. Nathaniel Hackett, he's had a lot of time to spend with Rodgers and that offensive Green Bay, but he's never run a team before, so that could be kind of and they still play a tough schedule, but not as tough as some of these other teams. So they have the 16th toughest schedule in the NFL, according to the predicted win total.
They got 2 easy games before the 49ers. They got Seahawks, Texans, then us. Again, so I felt very favorable about the Chiefs and about the Raiders. Not so much. And, shout out to Phil. He was talking about how aren't we coming off of a bye before the Chargers? That is correct. Still don't like what I want the Chargers coming off a rough situation. But, we are coming off a bye, which helps.
That makes me want to watch that game even more. You've got the Chargers coming off kind of an easy game and a bye before that, and the 49ers coming off an actual bye. That is going to be a juggernaut of a match.
Yeah.
That's probably going to make, we talk about games I'm most excited about, and maybe we'll do a segment that's purely not because we're on a 49ers podcast, but that's a game that I certainly have circled. But let's dig a little bit more into these matchups. So momentum is a big thing in the NFL as far as confidence, and starting off at Seattle, Russell Wilson going right back to Seattle to start off, and this team doesn't have the talent to compete with the Broncos.
I love the NFL for doing that. I love what they did.
100%. What?
And they're going to wipe the floor with them. I want a 40-6 game. Yes, I want it to be embarrassing.
100%. I don't think it's going to be close. You don't even have Bobby Wagner running that defense. I don't think it's going to be competitive. And then you go against the Texans team right after that. So even if they do lose that game to San Francisco, you're starting 2-1. You have the Jets and the Jaguars to round out the rest of the first half of the season. You're playing the 4th place schedule with a very talented team. So there's just a lot of, you got the Panthers in the second half of the season, Cardinals, you and I are not as high on them this year. So there's easier games than there are for the Raiders and the Chiefs.
This is one of the teams that I think is going to jump out to a very hot start. I mean, the first half, they've got so many cupcake games, Jets, Jags, Texans, Seahawks, but then down the stretch late, Chargers, Rams, Chiefs twice, Cardinals, they'll be bad by then. Raven, I could see this team being a 6-2 team early and then kind of just going 3-4 late or whatever. So, man, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, we talked about toughest stretches, and one notable thing about the Broncos schedule is they have the longest toughest stretch. I was only trying to find for each team, what are the 3 hardest games in a row? I couldn't narrow it down to 3. I've got week 13 through week 18 at Ravens versus Chiefs versus Cardinals, Rams, at Chiefs versus Chargers. Are you kidding me? This is a team that is lucky that their schedule is going to set up to where they're going to win a lot of games early. But I'm very much aligned with you, John, that I think they're going to have problems down the stretch. I think they're good enough to finish 10-7, and that is my prediction. I think they're a team that a lot of people are going to be talking about early, but they're going to stumble down the road simply because of the gauntlet that they have to go through to end the season.
Oh, dude, I love it. Oh, man, we've got a celebrity in the house. Jason Batch, really, really good friend. If you went to Chicago with us last year, this is just an incredible individual. He lives in the Denver area. He photographed the whole event for us, which was incredible. So, he says, looking for tickets as we speak. Looking forward to seeing you in Denver, John. You bet your rear end, Jason. Excited to hang out and hang out again, man. That was incredible last time. So pumped about that. And, man, we've got – this is fun, man. Everything that we're trying to do with the 49ers Rush show, podcast, whatever, is just build a better fan experience. And the fact that we're diving into AFC West schedules and power rankings, we want you to be informed and know what's going on. And Brian, I think you have done a hell of a job, man, and really do appreciate what you brought to our program. So just want to say thank you to that. We're going to be seeing this guy a lot. Real quick, Brian, before you jump out of here, plug Legit Football one more time for me.
Yeah, once again, there's lots of different ways for you guys to consume the content, and none of it will cost you a thing. So you can sign up for the newsletter, legitfootball.com, hit join, enter your email address, look for our podcast. It's a daily podcast that's just a recap of the newsletter. If you just want to listen to the news in 10 minutes or less, you can do that, and download our app. Just look for Legit Football and the iPhone or Android. And then follow us on Twitter @_legitfootball. Email me, Brian@legitfootball.com. I will talk football all day, every day. John, thank you. To me, this is fun. This is just fun for me.
I love it, man. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. And man, we got a lot more content coming your way. I think we had 5 videos come out today. I'm trying to get 6 out tomorrow. So stay tuned. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please head over there. It's probably the best way to support the show if you're not with us on Patreon, but that's over there. But anyway, that's going to do it for us today. And as always, stay strong, faithful.